Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. And we are starting off chapter 1 in our book, The Whole Brain Child. You can click the link in the comments to grab, or in the description to grab this book off of Amazon. And I really encourage you to have these resources in your home. They are fantastic. Like last book club, I'm not reading the entire book to you guys. I'm just picking out bits and pieces of it that I'm finding useful and that I enjoy. Anyways, so I had done the introduction to this book the other day, and today I am doing chapter 1 for you guys. So this is parenting with the brain in mind. And like before, this is no fluff. I'm going to get right into it. If you have questions, if you want to share anything in the comments, please do so. That would be amazing. The most caring, best educated parents often lack basic information about their child's brain. Isn't this surprising? Especially when you consider the central role of the brain plays in virtually every aspect of a child's life that parents care about. Discipline, decision-making, self-awareness, school, relationships, and so on. In fact, the brain pretty much determines who we are and what we do. And since the brain itself is significantly shaped by the experiences we offer as parents, knowing about the way the brain changes in response to our parenting can help us to nurture a stronger, more resilient child. So we want to introduce you to the whole brain perspective. We'd like to explain some fundamental concepts about the brain and help you apply your new knowledge in ways that will make parenting easier and more meaningful. We're not saying that raising a whole brain child will get rid of all the frustrations that come with parenting, but by understanding a few simple and easy to master basics about how the brain works, you'll be able to better understand your child, respond more effectively to difficult situations, and build a foundation for social, emotional, and mental health. What you do as a parent matters and will provide you with straightforward, scientifically based ideas that will help you build a strong relationship with your child that can help shape his brain, as well as give them the best foundation for a healthy and happy life. So there's a story here that's in the book that I'm going to share because it comes up a little bit later as well in this chapter. One day, Marianne received a call at work telling her that her 2-year-old son, Marco, had been in a car accident with his babysitter. Marco was fine, but the babysitter who was driving had been taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Marianne, a principal at the elementary school, frantically rushed to the scene of the accident, where she was told that the babysitter had experienced a seizure while driving. She found a firefighter unsuccessfully attempting to console her toddler. She took Marco in her arms, and he immediately began to calm down as she comforted him. As soon as he stopped crying, he began telling his mom what happened, using his 2-year-old language, which only his parents and babysitter were able to understand. He continued to repeat, "E-woo-woo." E is the word for Sophia, his babysitter, and woo-woo is how he described the ambulance. Marco was focusing on the detail of the story that mattered the most to him. Sophia had been taken away. In a situation like this, many of us would be tempted to assure Marco that Sophia would be fine, then immediately focus on something else to get the child's mind off the situation. Let's go get ice cream. In the days that follow, many parents would try to avoid upsetting their child by not discussing the accident. And that's true. Like, how many of us, something happens, a child even simply falls, right? And hurt themselves. And instead of going over the situation with them, like, oh, you fell and you hurt your leg, or you fell and this is what happened, we try to avoid the situation and offer something else, right? Like, oh, let's go get a cookie or whatever, right? The problem with that, with the let it go and get some ice cream approach, is that it leaves the child confused about what happened and why. He's still full of big and scary emotions, but he isn't allowed or helped to deal with them in an effective way. Marianne didn't make that mistake. She had taken Tina's class on parenting and the brain, and she immediately put what she knew to good use. That night and over the next week, when Marco's mind continually brought him back to the car crash, Marianne helped him retell the story over and over and over again. She'd say, "Yes, you and Sophia were in an accident, weren't you?" And things like, "Yes, Sophia had a seizure and started shaking, and the car crashed, didn't it?" And then he would say, "The woo-woo." And she said, "That's right. Woo-woo came and took Sophia to the doctor. And now she's all better. Remember, we went to see her yesterday. She's doing just fine, isn't she?" And she would retell the story. And it was helping him to understand what had happened so he can begin to deal with it emotionally. Since she knew the importance of helping her son's brain process the frightening experience, she helped him tell and retell this event so that he could process his fear and go on with his daily routines in a healthy and balanced way. Over the next few days, Marco brought up the accident less and less until it just became another life experience, but an important one. So as we read the following pages, this will come into play. So we're going to talk about integration and why it matters. You have a left side of the brain that helps you think logically and organize thoughts into sentences, and a right side that helps you experience emotion and read nonverbal cues. You also have a reptile brain that allows you to act instinctually and make split-second survival decisions, and a mammal brain that leads you towards connecting in relationships. One part of your brain is devoted to dealing with memory, another part moral and ethical decisions. It's almost as if your brain has multiple personalities, some rational, some irrational, some relevant, some reactive. No wonder why we can seem like different people at different times. The key to thriving is to help these parts work well together, to integrate them. Integration is simply that, linking different elements together to make a well-functioning whole. It's easy to see when our kids aren't integrated. They become overwhelmed by their emotions, confused and chaotic. They can't respond calmly and capably to situations at hand. Tantrums, meltdowns, aggression, and most of the other challenging experiences of parenting and life are a result of loss of integration, also known as disintegration. We want to help our children become better integrated so that they can use their whole brain in a coordinated way. Then it talks about like horizontally and vertically integrated, which I'm going to skip over, but it's basically that the left brain logic can work well with the right brain emotion, just like working well together. Our brain is actually moldable, and this means that the brain can physically change throughout the course of our lives, not just in childhood as we previously assumed. So what molds our brain? Experience. Even into old age, our experiences actually change the physical structure of the brain. When we undergo an experience, our brain cells, called neurons, become active or fire. The brain has 100 billion neurons, each with an average of 10,000 connections to other neurons. The ways in which particular circuits in the brain are activated determines the nature of the mental activity, ranging from perceiving sights or sounds to more abstract thoughts and reasonings. When neurons fire together, they grow new connections between them, and over time, the connections that result from firing lead to rewiring the brain. Right now, your child's brain is constantly being wired and rewired, and the experiences you provide will go a long way toward determining the structure of their brain. No pressure, right? Don't worry though, nature has provided some basic architecture of the brain with proper food, sleep, and stimulation. Genes do play a role in how people turn out, especially in terms of temperament. But findings from various areas in developmental psychology suggest that everything that happens to us, the music we hear, the people we love, the books we read, the kind of discipline we receive, the emotion we feel, profoundly affects the way our brain develops. In other words, on top of our basic brain architecture and our inborn temperament, parents have much that they can do to provide the kinds of experiences that will help develop a resilient, well-integrated brain. This book will show you how to use everyday experiences to help your child's brain become more and more integrated. For example, children whose parents talk with them about their experiences tend to have better access to the memories of those experiences. Parents who speak with their children about their feelings have children who develop emotional intelligence and can understand their own and other people's feelings more fully. Shy children whose parents nurture a sense of courage by offering supportive explorations of the world tend to lose their behavioral inhibitions, while those who are excessively protective or insensitively thrust into anxiety-provoking experiences without support tend to maintain their shyness. This wire and rewire process is what integration is all about. Giving our children experiences to create connections between different parts of the brain. When these parts collaborate, they create and reinforce the integrative fibers that link different parts of the brain. As a result, they are connected in more powerful ways and can work together even more harmoniously. Harmoniously? Is that how I would pronounce it? Harmoniously. Sorry. Just as individual singers in a choir can weave their distinct voices into a harmony that would be impossible for any one person to create. An integrated brain is capable of doing much more than its individual parts could accomplish alone. Right? Right. Wow. That's what we want to do for each of our kids. Help their brain become more integrated so they can use their mental resources to full capacity. This is exactly what Marianne did for Marco. When she helped him retell the story over and over and over again, she diffused the scary, traumatic emotions to his right brain so that didn't rule him. She did so by bringing in factual details and logic from his left brain, which at 2 years old is just beginning to develop, so that he could deal with the accident in a way that made sense to him. If his mother hadn't helped him and tell him and understand the story, Marco's fear would have been left unresolved and could have surfaced in other ways. He might have developed a phobia around cars or being separated from his parents, or his right brain might have raged out of control in other ways, causing him to have temper tantrums or freak out, right? Instead, by telling the story with Marco, she helped him focus his attention both on the actual details of the accident and his emotions, which allowed him to use the both left and right sides of his brain together, literally strengthening their connection. By helping him become better integrated, he could return to his being a normal developing 2-year-old rather than dwelling on the fear and distress he had experienced. Let's look at another example. Now that you and your siblings are adults, do you still fight over who gets to push the button on the elevator? Of course not. Or at least we hope not. But do your kids squabble and bicker over this kind of issue? If they're typical kids, then they do. The reason behind this difference brings us back to the brain and integration. Sibling rivalry is like so many other issues that make parenting difficult. Tantrums, disobedience, homework, battles, discipline matters, and so on. As we'll explain in the coming chapters, these everyday parent challenges result from a lack of integration within our child's brain. The reason their brain isn't always capable of integration is simple. It hasn't had time to develop. In fact, it's got a long way to go, since a person's brain isn't considered fully developed until the mid-20s. Isn't that crazy? I didn't realize that the brain is not fully developed until the mid-20s. So that's the bad news. You have to wait for your child's brain to develop. They're not just going to jump ahead in development. You know, your 3-year-old, your preschooler's brain is not going to be a 10-year-old's brain. It's just not the way it works. But the good news is that by using everyday moments, you can influence how well your child's brain grows towards integration. First, you can develop the diverse elements of your child's brain by offering opportunities to exercise them. Second, you can facilitate integration so that the separate parts become better connected and work together in powerful ways. This isn't making your children grow up more quickly. It's simply helping them develop the many parts of themselves and integrate them. We're also not talking about wearing yourself out by frantically trying to fill every experience with significant meaning. We're talking about simply being present with your children so that you can help them intellectually and socially. So you can help them become better integrated. As a result, they will thrive emotionally, intellectually, and socially. An integrated brain results in improved decision-making, better control of body and emotions, fuller self-understanding, stronger relationships, and success in schools. And it all begins with the experiences parents and other caregiver providers, which lay the groundwork for integration and mental health. So get in the flow, navigating the waters between chaos and rigidity. And I really like this explanation. When a person is well integrated, they enjoy mental health and well-being. But that's not exactly easy to define. In fact, even though entire libraries have been written discussing mental illness, mental health is rarely defined. A simple way to express it, though, is to describe mental health as an ability to remain in a river of well-being. Imagine a peaceful river running through the countryside. That's the river of well-being. Whenever you're in the water, peacefully floating along in your canoe, you feel like you're generally in a good relationship with the world around you. You have a clear understanding of yourself, other people, and your life. You can be flexible and adjust the situations when situations change. You're stable and at peace. Sometimes, though, as you float along, you veer too close to one of the river's two banks. This causes different problems depending on which bank you approach. One bank may represent chaos, where you feel out of control. Instead of floating in the peaceful river, you are caught up in a pool of rapids, and confusion and turmoil rule the day. You need to move away from the bank of chaos and get back into the gentle flow of the river. But don't go too far, because on the other bank it presents its own dangers. It's the bank of rigidity, which is the opposite of chaos. As opposed to being out of control, rigidity is when you are imposing control on everything and everyone around you. You become completely unwilling to adapt, compromise, or negotiate. Near the bank of rigidity. Am I pronouncing that right? I hope. I don't know. The water smells stagnant, and reeds and trees branches prevent your canoe from flowing to the river of well-being. So one extreme is chaos, where there's a total lack of control. The other extreme is rigidity, where there's too much control, leading to a lack of flexibility and adaptability. We all move back and forth between these two banks as we go through our days, especially as we're trying to survive as parents. When we're closest to the bank of chaos or rigidity, we're farthest from mental and emotional health. The longer we can avoid either bank, the more time we spend enjoying the river of well-being. Much of our lives as adults can be seen as moving along these paths, sometimes in the harmony of the flow of well-being, but sometimes in chaos and sometimes rigidity, or zigzagging back and forth between the two. Harmony emerges from integration. Chaos and rigidity arise when integration is blocked. All of this applies to our kids as well. They have their own little canoes, and they float down their own river of well-being. Many of the challenges we face as parents results from the times when our kids aren't in the flow, when they're either too chaotic or too rigid. Your 3-year-old won't share his toy boat at the park. Rigidity. He erupts into crying, yelling, and throwing sand when his new friend takes the boat away. Chaos. What you can do is help guide your child back into that flow of the river, into a harmonious state that avoids both chaos and rigidity. And I think this book is going to be really great for us parents who are overwhelmed moms, who are struggling with our mental health. I think that this book is going to help not only myself, obviously it's going to help the kids, but I think it's going to help myself as well with my own river of well-being. There's times where I don't understand that chaos that's happening. And by reading this so far, I'm understanding that more. And by understanding my brain a little bit better, my eyes are like open. I don't know if that makes sense, but my eyes are open to like just a lot of things. Anyways, it's pretty deep. The same goes for older children. Your normally easygoing 5th grader is crying hysterically because she didn't get the solo she wanted in the school play. She refuses to calm down and repeatedly tells you that she has the best voice in her grade. She's actually zigzagging back and forth between the banks of chaos and rigidity, as her emotions have clearly taken control of her logic. As a result, she stubbornly refuses to acknowledge that someone else might be just as talented. You can guide her back into the flow of well-being so that she can achieve better balance within herself and move into a more integrated state. And there's lots of ways to do this in this book. So they're telling us. Virtually all survival moments fit into this framework in one way or another. The concepts actually allow you to take the temperature of how well integrated your child is at any given moment. If you see chaos or rigidity, you know that they're not in a state of integration. Likewise, when they are in a state of integration, they demonstrate the qualities we associate with someone who is mentally and emotionally healthy. They're flexible, adaptive, stable, and able to understand themselves and the world around them. The powerful and practical approach of integration enables us to see the many ways in which our children, or we ourselves, experience chaos and rigidity because integration has been blocked. When we become aware of this idea, we can then create and carry out strategies that promote integration in our kids' lives and in our own. These are the day-to-day whole brain strategies we'll explore in the following chapters. So that is chapter 1. These chapters are shorter chapters, I will let you know. So they're definitely not going to take as long as our last book club. I'm thinking that we'll come under 30 minutes with these. The next chapter is 2 brains are better than 1, integrating the left and the right. So it talks more about that. So we will be looking over that next Thursday. You guys still have lots of time to grab this book, a copy of it, just because, like I said, I'm not reading the whole thing to you, picking out a lot of the bits and pieces that I think are kind of important, but the things that I'm skipping over might be equally important to you, right? So definitely grab a copy of this book for yourself, and this is something that you're going to be able to pull out with different stages of your child's life, right? So you're going to be able to pull this book out and to reread it and to go over the different things for different stages of your child's life. And I think that's really a thing with all parenting books, and why it's really important to have the resources on hand that you can just kind of grab and learn from and explore a little bit more. One thing I will recommend is that you read and you reread the books more than once, right? Because what you're going to get something from listening to me talking and reading over some of these things. You're going to get benefit from that. You're going to then also read the book and get a lot of benefit from that, because by reading that, you're going to pick out things that you may not have heard from my voice, right? Because we have different ways of learning and bringing in information. And then you read it a third time, and you're going to gather something more. You're going to understand something just a little bit more. And you read it again and you're going to understand it even more. And every single time you read a book, you guys, with personal development or anything like that, you're picking out new things, new experiences, new key points that are just going to stick with you even more than it had the first time or the second time or the third time. So don't be scared to reread these books and the resources in your life. We have lots of time, and reading is a fantastic thing to do with your time because it definitely helps mold your brain into something amazing. Like we've read in chapter 1 that the brain is constantly evolving, right? So bring in all the information that you can. Anyways, so that is it for chapter 1 tonight. I hope that you guys have a great evening, and next week we will do chapter 2, and I shall see you before then. I'm sure I will see you guys before then at some point. But like I said, this is The Whole Brain Child. You can click the link in the description or in the comments and go ahead and order a copy of your own book. So you have a great night. See you.